She wasn't a monster, she was worse. When journalist Trevor McDonald stepped into one of America's most feared women's prisons, he expected danger. But he didn't expect her. The woman who outsmarted guards, exposed every crack in the system, and controlled people without ever raising her voice. A woman so intelligent, the state kept her locked in a box for years just to stop her mind from moving. This isn't just a prison story. It's a story about manipulation, madness, loyalty, trauma, and the terrifying power of a woman who knows exactly what she's capable of. The first thing Trevor McDonald notices is the silence. Not the peaceful kind. The heavy kind. A silence that waits, watches, judges. It hangs over the grounds of Rockville Correctional Facility, one of the two most feared women's prisons in America. The other, Indiana Women's Prison, sits miles away, but the atmosphere is identical. Cold, watchful, and coiled like something alive. Even before Trevor steps inside, he feels the weight of it pressing on his ribs. A razor wire crown glitters above the walls, sharp as broken teeth. The sky hangs low. The air is thick. And as he walks toward the entrance, escorted by state officers, a single thought settles in. No woman walks through these gates and remains the same. Some never walk out at all. Trevor has reported from war zones, interviewed terrorists, and sat across from cartel bosses, but nothing quite prepares him for the echoing slam of the first iron door. Bong. It's not a door closing. It's the world making sure you know it owns you. He feels it in his bones. Inside, the lighting shifts from daylight to a washed-out artificial glow. The air is colder. The smell of disinfectant fights with something older, despair soaked deep into concrete. Sergeant McPherson, his guide for the day, moves with the calm precision of someone who has spent years navigating danger. She doesn't smile. She doesn't pretend. She simply says, "Stay close." They begin their walk. The hallways are a maze of metal grates, clanging locks, and distant voices, some laughing, some yelling, some whispering things you don't want to understand. Every sound carries. Every emotion echoes. Trevor thinks about the statistics he'd read before coming. More women imprisoned in America than anywhere else in the world. Many serving time for violent acts most people don't believe women are capable of. Most are mothers. Some are killers. A few are both. Society calls women the gentler sex, but inside these walls, that fairy tale burns up like paper. Here, women have stabbed, shot, set fires, strangled, smothered, poisoned, plotted, connived, manipulated, and destroyed. They have been victims. They have been monsters. Sometimes both in the same lifetime. Trevor came searching for truth. But in this place, truth comes wrapped in danger. Sergeant McPherson leads him deeper, past units where inmates mill around in civilian gray uniforms. Some glance at Trevor with wary curiosity. Others ignore him completely. And a few, he feels their eyes the way one feels a blade pressed lightly against the skin. He reminded himself, these aren't the fragile women of storybooks. These are survivors of violence, and sometimes the architects of it. But today, he's not here for them. He's going somewhere darker. Administrative segregation, Sergeant McPherson announces, stopping before another secured door. Trevor already knows the term, seg, the inmates call it. But even in documentaries, the meaning feels distant. Here, standing inches from the threshold, it hits him with full force. This is where the prison keeps the ones they fear. Not the loudest, not the angriest, not even the most violent, but the ones who are clever, calculating, unpredictable, the ones who can move invisible pieces on a board no one else can see. Segregation is where you put people who don't just break rules, they break systems. The door swings open. The hallway beyond is narrow, long, and windowless. Each step seems to sink into the floor. The atmosphere changes instantly, colder, thicker, heavier. The noise fades behind them until only the buzz of fluorescent lights fills the silence. Trevor realizes something disorienting. Even the air here feels punished. Sergeant McPherson explains as they walk. Inmates in this unit spend around 20 hours a day locked inside their cells. No contact with the general population. No freedom of movement. Limited privileges. This is corrective space. Corrective. A sanitized word for a brutal reality. These cells aren't meant simply to confine. They're meant to crush, to break the spirit, to remind you that the world hasn't forgotten your crimes, but it has forgotten you. Trevor glances into one of the tiny locked windows. A metal bunk, a stainless steel toilet, a pair of eyes staring back at him with pure, hollow exhaustion. He doesn't know her story. He doesn't need to. Every woman in this corridor has earned her place here, or fought her way here in the violent hierarchy of prison life. But today, Trevor isn't looking for them. He's looking for one woman whose name turned the entire state upside down. As they move deeper, Sergeant McPherson leans slightly toward him, lowering her voice. She'll be in the last section. Trevor understands immediately who she means. Sarah Jo Pender, the woman reporters once compared to a female Charles Manson. A convicted murderer. A brilliant manipulator. A woman who escaped from a maximum security facility by convincing a trained officer, a man who knew every rule, to break all of them. For 4 months, she outsmarted local police, state troopers, U.S. Marshals, and federal investigators. Some called her evil. Some called her genius. Most called her dangerous. And now, she has spent almost 5 years in segregation, longer than any other female inmate in Indiana. Longer than some prisoners spend on death row. The closer they get, the thicker the air becomes. Trevor feels it. The weight of the unseen. The silence before a storm. The way every guard straightens their posture. How conversations suddenly stop at the sight of her door. This isn't just another inmate. This is a name that still creates tremors. Sergeant McPherson stops at the final cell. Her voice is firm but low. She's inside. Trevor takes a breath. He isn't just standing outside a cell. He's standing at the edge of a story that has haunted courtrooms, headlines, and living rooms across America. A story of manipulation, seduction, violence, and betrayal, the kind that leaves scars on institutions. In here, inside this steel-mouthed corridor, is a woman who slipped through the cracks of a maximum security prison like smoke. A woman who outsmarted officers, investigators, and the law itself. A woman whose intelligence scares even the people paid to guard her. Trevor steps closer to the door. Somewhere behind that narrow slit of reinforced glass, a pair of eyes is watching him. Quiet, calculating, waiting. And in that moment, Trevor knows. This is where the story truly begins. Inside the gates that swallow hope. Welcome my beautiful family and friends to my YouTube channel. Please click on subscribe, like, comment, and share this video. Thank you specially for sticking around to this very moment. Now back to the story. She sits in a cell no wider than a parking space. A steel bunk. A concrete desk. Walls painted the color of forgotten things. To most people, this would be punishment. To Sarah Jo Pender, it is simply the endgame of a plan that went further than anyone expected. Trevor McDonald stands outside her segregation cell, observing her through the narrow pane of reinforced glass. She is smaller than he imagined. Softer. Almost studious. She looks like someone who should be walking through a university campus with a backpack slung over her shoulder, not locked behind the harshest door Indiana's prison system can offer. Yet here she is. The woman once labeled America's Most Wanted. The woman whose escape made national headlines, whose intelligence unsettled correctional staff, and whose ability to manipulate others' borders on the legendary. Trevor steps inside. Pender looks up, calm, composed, her hands folded on the metal table before her. Her eyes, sharp and curious, track him with the detached interest of someone who has already predicted how this conversation will end. Trevor, she says with a small nod. They told me you were coming. Her voice is soft, but not fragile. Controlled. Measured. Dangerously steady. He has interviewed cartel assassins with shaky hands, gang leaders with walls built around their emotions, and terrorists who hide behind ideology. But Sarah Pender? She hides behind nothing. She meets his gaze with a quiet confidence that is more unsettling than rage, more unnerving than madness. Because confidence used the wrong way becomes a weapon. And Sarah knows exactly how to use weapons. Trevor wastes no time. Sarah, you escaped from a maximum security prison, he begins. How did you do something so impossible? She doesn't flinch. She doesn't hesitate. She simply tilts her head slightly, as though deciding how honest she wants to be. It wasn't impossible, she says. Just inconvenient. A ghost of a smile touches her lips. People think prisons break people, but they also make people predictable. Once you know the schedule, the habits, the weaknesses, the vulnerabilities, you can plan around them. She speaks like a professor explaining a simple scientific formula, not a convicted murderer describing a prison escape. Trevor presses further. And the officer who helped you, Scott Spittler. How did you convince him? At that, her smile fades into something more reflective. Not remorse. Not pride. Something colder. Manipulation, she says plainly. That's what everyone calls it, isn't it? Trevor watches her closely. Sarah sits back, her posture relaxed, as if remembering events that had played out exactly as she intended. I never asked him to take me out, she continues. Not once. That's important. People make mistakes when they ask for too much. Instead, I let him make the first mistake. The way she says it sends a tension through the room, a soft, unsettling reminder that power isn't only in actions, but in knowing how to make someone take the action for you. Trevor leans forward. People say he fell in love with you. A short silence stretches between them. Sarah's eyes narrow slightly, not in anger, but in amusement. He was lonely, she replies. He had problems at home. He wanted someone to listen. I listened. It's that simple. And that complicated. She continues. He trafficked contraband for me. Small things at first. Items worth money. I paid him well. He liked the attention. He liked feeling important. Eventually, he found out I was planning to escape on my own. Trevor raises an eyebrow. And that's when he offered to help? Sarah nods. Yes. He thought he saw an opportunity. He said, what if I could roll you out of here myself? Her eyes flicker, not from emotion but calculation. That was the moment I knew the plan would work. Trevor exhales slowly. You didn't tell him to do it. You just let him think it was his idea. Yes, she replies simply. People always follow through on their own ideas. Her calmness is unnerving. It forces Trevor to confront an uncomfortable truth. Pender doesn't sound like a prisoner retelling a mistake. She sounds like a strategist explaining a successful mission. Trevor shifts into the next question. And the relationship? The sexual relationship? Was that part of the plan? Sarah brushes a strand of hair behind her ear, her expression cool and untroubled. It wasn't planned, she says. But it wasn't inconvenient. There is no embarrassment. No shame. Only clarity. He was vulnerable, she explains. People in pain cling to whatever makes them feel better. I became that. Trevor notes that she never uses the word love. She talks about emotional attachments like a scientist dissecting the properties of a chemical reaction. Something to be studied. Understood. Leveraged. Trevor asks the question everyone wants answered. So, when the day came, what happened? Sarah recounts it patiently, like she's told the story many times. He drove the transportation van to get fuel. That was our window. I slipped out, got in, hid under the back seat. The alarms didn't go off. No one checked the van. We drove out the gate. She shrugs, almost apologetically. That was it. Trevor feels a rush of disbelief. Something so simple. Something so devastating. The state had been humiliated by one woman with a plan and one man with a weakness. And then Sarah says something that chills him. People think I'm dangerous because I escaped. But escaping wasn't the dangerous part. Convincing them it could never happen again, that's the part that scares them. When Sarah's escape hit the news, the entire correctional system reeled from the blow. Officers were fired. Investigations launched. Protocols rewritten. Because Sarah hadn't just broken out, she had exposed every crack in the system. Trevor recalls what Lieutenant Gray had told him earlier. She could convince anyone to do anything. If she could turn an officer, she could turn anybody. Even Sergeant McPherson, a veteran officer hardened by decades inside these walls, admitted through gritted teeth. She's the best manipulator I've seen. The words echo as Trevor sits across from her now. Because looking into Sarah Pender's eyes, he understands exactly what they meant. Not that she is monstrous. Not that she is violent. Not that she is unhinged. But that she is aware, painfully, sharply aware, of the power she holds over people. Aware of her intelligence. Aware of her influence. Aware of the effect she has when she decides to use it. This is what makes her dangerous. Not the escape. Not the murders. Not the scandal. But the simple, terrifying truth. Sarah Jo Pender knows exactly who she is and exactly what she's capable of. And sitting inside that cramped segregation cell, watching Trevor with calm, calculating curiosity, she doesn't look defeated. She looks like she's still 3 moves ahead. The general population of Indiana women's prison looks, at first glance, like any ordinary institution. Women walk in slow lines. Some chat quietly. Some laugh. Some keep their heads down, staring at the concrete as if it has answers they once searched for in the real world. But the longer Trevor McDonald stands there, the more he feels the undercurrent humming beneath it all. These women are not who they appear to be, and their crimes do not fit their faces. No one embodies that contradiction more than the woman walking toward him now, a petite inmate with soft eyes, a shy half-smile, and the quiet voice of someone who has spent her entire life apologizing for existing. "Trevor," she asks gently, extending a hand. "I'm Addie Harts." If Trevor had passed her on the street, he might have assumed she worked at a daycare or a cafe. She looks young, painfully young, and her tone is polite, almost nervous. She fiddles with a folded piece of paper in her hand, the way a child might cling to a school assignment. But under that shy exterior is a history soaked in violence. Addie leads him to a corner table in the day room, away from the noise of other inmates. She sits carefully, as if afraid of taking up too much space. Trevor notices how she keeps glancing at the door, as though half expecting someone to drag her back into the shadows of her past. Finally, she speaks. "It's strange talking about what I did," she admits. "Because looking at me, no one ever believes it." Trevor leans in, sensing the unraveling thread of her story. Addie exhales slowly before continuing. "I used to rob people. On the streets. In the middle of the night. I'd jump out of a car with a couple of others, throw punches, knock people down, take whatever they had, purses, wallets, I didn't care. I was angry. I was always angry. At everyone." Her voice trembles slightly. Not with fear. With shame. Trevor studies her face. This is not a woman who radiates menace. There is no hardness in her expression, no sharp edges in her demeanor. But the truth sits between them like a heavy shadow. She was violent. She was dangerous. She was exactly the kind of woman people claim shouldn't exist. Trevor asks softly, "How old were you when all this began?" Her answer is a whisper. 13. 13. Barely old enough to understand the consequences of a broken heart, much less a broken life. By 15, she was punching strangers. By 17, she was robbing them. By 21, she was behind bars. And now, at 25, Addie Harts has spent nearly a decade paying for decisions made in the kind of childhood most people don't survive. Trevor notices the way she rubs her hands together, almost unconsciously, as if wiping away memories that never wash off. Yet beneath her criminal past, there is another layer, a deeper pain. Trevor sees it before she says a word. The guilt of a mother. He asks softly, "Addie, do you have children?" Her eyes soften instantly. The room's harsh fluorescent lights catch the tears she refuses to let fall. "I have 2 daughters," she says. 7 and 9 now. 9 years. Almost a decade, she hasn't held them. Almost a decade stolen by prison walls and the choices of a teenage girl spiraling through the world like a loose wire. Every night, Addie lies in her bunk and stares at the ceiling, thinking about her girls, their faces, their voices, their growing up without her. She knows every moment she misses is a moment she will never get back. Trevor feels the air tighten as she speaks. My mom was in prison too, she says quietly. So was her mom. And my dad just got out. It's just a cycle. A curse. You grow up thinking this is normal. Fighting, stealing, drugs, it's all you know. And then you become a mom, and you realize your kids deserve more, but you're already too deep. She pauses. I don't want my daughters to live the life I lived, but I'm scared they're already on that path. There is something chilling about the generational repetition, crime not as a decision, but as an inheritance. The truth hits Trevor with the weight of something ancient. Cycles don't break on their own. They demand sacrifice. Sometimes they demand blood. Some women in this unit stabbed their partners. Some shot strangers. Some shook babies. Some burned homes. But all of them, in some way, have bled for their choices. Even the ones who still insist they were innocent. Trevor looks around and suddenly sees the unit with new eyes. Every smile hides a tragedy. Every inmate hides a story. Every story contains danger. Addie continues, her voice barely above a breath. I used to think I was the victim, that the world owed me something. But then I got arrested, and I realized I had become the person I hated most. I had become the people who used to hurt me. Her hands shake. She hides them under the table. I used to punch people so hard their teeth broke, she says, eyes fixed on the ground. Now I knit blankets for my daughters during arts programs. It doesn't make up for anything, but it's something. Trevor asks the question hovering between them. What scares you the most now? She closes her eyes, and for the first time, the hard truth escapes her lips. That I'll get out and I won't know how to be a good mother. Or a good person. That I'll let my daughters down the way everyone else let me down. The weight of those words hangs in the air. Because this is the real tragedy behind the crimes, the robberies, the violence. Not the damage done to the victims, but the damage done to themselves, to the child Addie once was, to the mother she became, to the future she still hopes for. Trevor watches her stand. She offers him a small, tentative smile. You know, she says softly, when people look at us, they see criminals. Monsters. But most of us were just broken girls who grew into broken women. And sometimes broken women do terrible things. Trevor realizes then that in this place, innocence is an illusion. The real story lies in their scars. As Addie walks away, blending into the crowd of inmates wearing the same gray uniforms and the same haunted expressions, Trevor feels the tension rise like a storm in his chest. He came here expecting to find criminals. Instead, he found tragedy wrapped in human form. Women who are mothers. Women who are fighters. Women who are violent. Women who are lost. Women who hide their sins behind soft voices and tired eyes. Women who walk through life with blood on their hands, but longing, desperately, for a chance to wash it off. Trevor McDonald stands just inside the threshold, watching as another group of newly arrived inmates shuffle into the processing room. They are wrapped in bright orange uniforms, the color of caution, the color of warning. But beneath the fabric, beneath the rules and the chains and the paperwork, they are wrapped in something far heavier.
Fear.
Some walk with trembling hands. Some try to steady their breathing. Some sniff back tears. And some stare defiantly at the floor, plastering a hard mask over the terror clawing at their insides. Trevor sees it all, the shaking shoulders, the forced bravado, the quiet sobs someone tries to swallow before anyone notices. Intake is the emotional front line of the prison system, the place where a woman's life collapses in real time. Here, every woman must strip away the life she lived, her clothes, her privacy, her identity, and step into a new one shaped entirely by the state. The room buzzes with instructions. Step forward. Put your belongings on the table. Face the wall. Look at the camera. Sign your name. For the officers, it's routine. For the newcomers, it's trauma. Trevor focuses on one inmate in particular, a thin woman with a tired face and eyes swollen from hours of crying.
Paula.
When an officer asks her to remove her jewelry, Paula's hands shake so violently, she drops the small plastic bracelet she was wearing. She mutters an apology, voice cracking, and bends down to retrieve it. Her shoulders quake. Her breathing stutters. Trevor steps closer, silently observing. It takes only moments to see that Paula is not a hardened criminal. She's a woman drowning long before she ever arrived here. When the intake nurse asks if she has family who will visit her, Paula breaks. Not the quiet kind of break, not sniffles or a tear sliding down her cheek. She crumples. Her face contorts. And she sobs like the world has taken something from her she can never get back. Between hiccups and breaths, she manages to speak. "My dad won't come," she whispers, wiping her face with the sleeve of her uniform. The nurse tries to reassure her. Sometimes they come later. Sometimes. "No," Paula interrupts. "It's not that he doesn't want to. He's tired. He's just tired." Trevor listens quietly, letting her words settle. Her father is not abandoning her out of anger. He is not punishing her for her mistakes. He is exhausted. Exhausted from working 2 jobs. Exhausted from raising her 9-year-old daughter. Exhausted from watching his child, Paula, fall into addiction, relapse, poverty, and now prison. Paula's voice softens when she mentions her daughter. "She's 9, she whispers. 9. She's so smart. She's everything." Another tear slips down her cheek. "My dad's taking care of her. He's doing the best he can. But I know it hurts him having to raise another child at his age. He already raised me. And I failed. I failed again." Trevor sees the shame burn through her. This is the part of prison that doesn't get filmed in crime shows or courtroom dramas, the part where punishment bleeds far beyond inmate and cell. It bleeds into families. Into generations. Paula's hands twist in her lap as she continues. "I called my daughter before they brought me here," she says. "I told her I loved her. She said, 'Mom, please be good this time.'" Her voice shatters. Trevor feels the room grow heavier. Around Paula, other women wait in line. One bites her lip so hard it nearly bleeds. Another stares straight ahead, trying not to cry. Another rocks back and forth on her heels, whispering prayers under her breath. Some have been here before, too many times to count. For them, intake is almost familiar. A sad, twisted homecoming. One officer notices Trevor watching and mutters under his breath. Some of these women say, "I'm home," when they walk through that door. No joke. Trevor turns back toward Paula and the others. He sees the truth painted across their faces. Prison is not just a place. For some, it's a pattern. A revolving door. A loop they cannot break. For every Paula trying to claw her way back to her daughter, there's another inmate who believes the outside world has nothing left to offer her. Addiction, poverty, abusive partners, childhood trauma, homelessness. These aren't excuses. They're anchors. Anchors tied around ankles long before the crimes were ever committed. Trevor watches intake unfold with a mixture of sorrow and frustration. Why do so many women end up here? Why do they return? Why can't they escape their own lives? As he observes the room, the answers begin to whisper themselves. Because some were born into violence. Because some were taught that chaos is normal. Because some have never known love without pain attached to it. Because some don't believe they're worth saving. Because some can't outrun the addiction that stole their childhoods. Because some have nowhere else to go. Prison becomes the one place where they know the rules. The one place where food is guaranteed. The one place where someone, somewhere, must pay attention to them. It becomes a twisted form of security. And that is the tragedy. Trevor watches Paula gather the rest of her intake items. A toothbrush, a pair of state-issued shoes, a stack of regulations she can barely read through her tears. She clutches the paper bag containing her few belongings. She wipes her eyes. She straightens her back. And she tries to breathe. Her wounds are invisible, but painfully deep. A daughter who needs her. A father who is breaking under the weight of responsibility. A life derailed by addiction and circumstance. And now, a sentence in a place built not just from concrete and steel, but from the broken stories of women just like her. As Paula is led toward the door that will take her into general population, Trevor feels the full weight of the mystery pressing against him. Why do these women keep returning? Why can't they escape the gravity of their own suffering? The answer is simple and devastating. Because prison is where their wounds show, but the world outside is where their wounds were made. Segregation is supposed to be the coldest part of the prison, a place designed to drain emotion, silence desire, and suffocate any spark of connection. But Trevor McDonald quickly realizes that behind these steel doors, emotions do not die. They ignite. When he steps back into the segregation hallway, the fluorescent lights buzz like angry insects above him. This part of the prison feels tighter, heavier, as if the walls themselves are holding their breath. Every cell door is a barrier, but every voice behind those doors carries the weight of survival. Sergeant McPherson leads him to a particular cell, its occupant already waiting, hands resting behind her back in cuffs, eyes sharp with defiance and mischief. "Trevor, this is Desiree Hancock," McPherson says. Desiree stands tall, her posture radiating both toughness and unspoken vulnerability. She is an armed robber, known among staff for her volatility and among inmates for something else entirely: her loyalty to Sarah Pender, her softness toward the most feared woman in the facility. Desiree smiles at Trevor with a kind of bold warmth, like someone who has long made peace with who she is, or at least who she has become inside these walls. "I hear you talk to Sarah," she says. Her tone is light, but the undercurrent is unmistakable: pride, affection, maybe even protectiveness. Trevor nods. "I did." Desiree's eyes soften. "She's something else, isn't she?" The guards exchange glances. They've heard this before. Many times. But Trevor waits, letting Desiree choose her words. "Sarah keeps me grounded," she says quietly. "Sometimes I want to snap. Lose it. This place, it can push you right over the edge. But she tells me, 'Desiree, sit down. Breathe. Don't ruin your life more than it's already ruined.' And I listen." Trevor takes this in. Here is a convicted robber, a woman known for violence on the outside, confessing that she bows to the calming voice of another inmate. Not a guard. Not a counselor. Another prisoner. The dynamic is powerful and deeply human. As Trevor speaks with Desiree, a picture begins to form, a truth rarely spoken outside prison walls. Relationships behind bars do not follow the rules of the outside world. They cannot. Inside, everything is amplified. Loneliness becomes love. Isolation becomes obsession. Fear becomes desperation. Touch becomes oxygen. Attention becomes survival. In this pressure cooker, women reach for each other not simply out of desire, but out of necessity. Desiree admits this with a shrug, her voice steady and unapologetic. "I wasn't gay before prison," she says bluntly. "Didn't even think about women like that. But here," she gestures to the walls around her, "this place changes you. It makes you need anyone who can make you feel human." Trevor watches her closely. She isn't joking. She isn't exaggerating. She's explaining the emotional physics of captivity. "People outside think it's all sex," Desiree continues. "But that's not it. Not even close." Her voice drops to a lower, more fragile register. "It's the loneliness. You go months, years, without family, without friends, without a hug." She meets Trevor's eyes. A touch means everything. A conversation means everything. Someone telling you they care? That's survival. She pauses, wrestling with a thought before letting it escape. "I've had maybe 12, 13 partners in here. I'm not proud of it. But I'm not ashamed either. It's the way you cope. It's how you keep from losing your mind." Her honesty lands like a confession in a church where the walls cannot judge. Trevor asks, "Do you think the relationships are real? Genuine?" Desiree laughs softly. "As real as they can be. Some women fall in love because they need to. Some because they're bored. Some because they're broken. Some because this place is the only world they know." She leans closer, lowering her voice. "And some because the right person looks at them the right way on the wrong day." Trevor recognizes the weight of this. In a place stripped of softness, Even the smallest bit of care becomes magnetic, becomes sacred, becomes overwhelming. Desiree explains something Trevor has heard whispered among staff. Most of the women here weren't gay on the outside, she says. You wouldn't believe how many switch up in here. It's not about labels. It's about survival. She taps her temple with one finger. This place messes with your head, makes you forget who you were, makes you find someone new to be. Trevor senses the raw truth in her words. This prison is not simply breaking women down. It is reshaping them, twisting their identities, forcing them to adapt or collapse. Desiree's voice grows softer. I don't even know who I was before this. I look in the mirror and see someone else. Someone hard. Someone angry. Someone who needs things she never needed before. She sighs. Prison can make you forget who you were and turn you into someone you never imagined becoming. As Trevor walks away from Desiree's cell, the weight of her words hangs in the stale air like humidity before a storm. He begins to see the facility differently now. Every whispered conversation between cell doors. Every lingering glance across the yard. Every fight sparked by jealousy. Every tear shed into a bunk pillow. Every letter written to a woman in another unit. Every heart broken by early release. This isn't just a prison. It is a boiling pot of emotions contained in steel. A place where survival is tethered to connection. Where human touch becomes contraband. Where companionship becomes currency. Where women cling to each other because they cannot cling to anything else. Trevor realizes something profound. The greatest danger in this prison is not the violence, or the manipulation, or the crimes committed. The greatest danger is the unraveling. The emotional unraveling of human beings pushed beyond their breaking points. Women stripped of everything, freedom, identity, family, reaching instinctively for the only thing left, one another. In this place, love becomes armor, lust becomes comfort, and connection becomes the line between sanity and collapse. Trevor leaves segregation with a new understanding. This prison does not just hold bodies. It holds hearts, twisting them, starving them, reshaping them. And the most dangerous part? Some women will walk out of these gates one day. But the women they used to be? Those versions are long gone. The corridor leading to the mailroom is quiet, unusually quiet. Most inmates walk with purpose, urgency, or frustration. But the woman Trevor McDonald follows moves slowly, almost reverently, as if each step is a reminder that she is running out of steps left to take inside these walls. Her name is Martha Search, and she has been here for 20 years, 2 decades, longer than some inmates have been alive, long enough for an entire world to shift without her. As she sorts envelopes into metal slots, her hands move with mechanical precision, a rhythm learned after thousands of days, a routine that has become part of her bones. The other women call out to her kindly, with respect. Martha has become something like a fixture, an elder, a quiet anchor in a place where stability is rare. But today, there is something different in her eyes. Something trembling beneath the surface. Freedom. It is coming for her. And she isn't sure she's ready. Trevor approaches gently, knowing the weight she carries in her silence. I hear you're almost done with your sentence, he says softly. Martha smiles, a fragile, uncertain curve of her lips. Yes, she says. It's been a long time. Long time doesn't come close. She hasn't seen one daughter since 1999. She hasn't hugged the other since 2005, the year her child confessed she couldn't do prison visits anymore. Leaving without you is too hard, Mom, she had said. And so Martha stopped asking. 20 years. 20 birthdays missed. 20 Christmases viewed through barbed wire. 20 years of watching her children become strangers. Trevor listens as she talks, her voice soft but steady. I don't know who they are now, she whispers. I don't know who I am either. In 20 years, prison became Martha's universe. The outside world became a rumor. Technology evolved. Language evolved. People evolved. But she stayed frozen. She laughs weakly, shaking her head as she recalls her one brief hospital trip outside the gates. They showed me this little thing, she says, forming a rectangle with her fingers. I didn't know what it was. An officer said it was an iPod. I thought it was some kind of radio. He explained you could put hundreds, maybe thousands of songs on it. She pauses. I used to own cassette tapes, she says, almost embarrassed. I still remember winding them with a pencil when they came undone. Trevor can't help but smile at the memory she clings to. But to Martha, it's not nostalgia, it's fear. Because everything she once knew has become obsolete. Cell phones, she continues. I don't even recognize them. The ones in here look like toys. But I know the ones outside are different. My daughters tried to explain, said you could see people's faces while you talk to them. I didn't understand. Her voice cracks. How do you live in a world you don't understand? It's not a rhetorical question. It's a wound. Most prisoners count the days until release with eagerness. Martha counts them with dread. She admits it openly. I'm scared, she whispers. I know that sounds wrong, but I'm scared. She looks around the unit, the metal bunks, the cement floors, the uniformed officers who have become both jailers and guardians. This world is small, harsh, unforgiving. But it is familiar. Out there are choices, responsibilities, temptations, unknowns. In here, she says, they tell you when to wake up, when to sleep, when to eat, when to breathe. She pauses before adding, out there, I have to tell myself. Trevor feels the air shift as she speaks. This isn't just a woman leaving prison. It's a woman leaving behind the only identity she has known for 20 years. For Martha, freedom is a paradox, the sweetest dream and the deepest terror. Heaven and hell, she says. That's what it feels like. Trevor asks gently, do you hope to see your daughters? Her eyes cloud with sorrow. Yes, I hope. But she takes a long breath. Hope is a dangerous thing. She explains how children try to stay strong for their parents, but prison years are heavy. Too heavy. My youngest stopped coming because the visits hurt her, she says. She would cry when she left, and I'd cry after she was gone. After a while, I told her not to come anymore. It was the hardest choice of her life. I didn't want my baby thinking prison was normal, she whispers. I didn't want her to get used to seeing me in shackles. Her voice breaks. But she grew up without me anyway. Trevor feels the tension in her words, the crushing weight of guilt, loss, fear. Martha is stepping into a future where her daughters are adults with lives she knows nothing about. Jobs. Families. Dreams. I don't know how to be their mother anymore, she admits. Martha's worries are not trivial. She wonders how to open a bank account, how to buy groceries without cash, how to use a card scanner, how to cross streets where cars move faster than she remembers, how to blend into a society that no longer looks the way it did in 2004. Money will feel strange in my hands, she says. Phones will confuse me. Computers will frighten me. Then her voice grows even softer. And sometimes, I'm afraid my daughters won't want me anymore. The words hang in the air, heavy, devastating, honest. Trevor understands in that moment that Martha is not simply walking out of prison. She is walking into a world that replaced her, outgrew her, forgot her. Finally, Trevor asks the question he's been holding. Do you think you'll make it out there? Martha looks down at her hands weathered by years of folding laundry, wiping prison tables, counting mail, gripping bars during long nights of regret. I want to, she says. I want to stay free. But she swallows hard. I've been here too long. I don't know how to live anywhere else. And that scares me more than prison ever did. Her honesty chills him. Because many inmates walk out of these gates with good intentions and then return through the same doors months later, unable to adjust. Martha's voice trembles. If I can't survive out there, if it's too much, will I come back here by mistake? She shakes her head, wiping her eyes. I don't want this to be the only world I know. Trevor realizes then that freedom is not a finish line. For Martha's search, it is a test, one she isn't sure she can pass. The door to segregation closes behind Trevor with a metallic thud that seems to echo deeper than before, as if the prison itself is aware this is the final confrontation. The final chapter. The moment where truth, lies, guilt, and innocence sit in the same room and stare each other down. Sergeant McPherson escorts him to the familiar cell, the one belonging to the woman whose name haunts Indiana's prison system. The woman who made headlines, made enemies, made officers lose their jobs, and made the entire state question how one inmate could outsmart so many. Sarah Jo Pender. Trevor has spoken to murderers, gang bosses, and men who have killed without remorse. But something about Sarah is different. More unsettling. More unfinished. Her story is a puzzle with pieces that refuse to fit neatly together. When she steps forward from the shadows of her cell, she looks almost serene, poised, controlled, her intelligence radiating like a quiet fire beneath her calm exterior. "Trevor," she says, folding her hands on the metal table. "Ready to talk again?" Trevor nods, sits down, and feels the tension tighten around him like an invisible cord. This is the moment he's been preparing for, to peel back the last layer, to ask the questions that matter, to step into the mind of the woman society calls a monster. Sarah wastes no time. She begins speaking before Trevor can even ask the first question. "I know why you're here," she says softly. "You want the truth, or at least my version of it." Her eyes flicker, unreadable. Trevor listens as she recounts the events with chilling clarity. "I bought the gun," she says. "Yes, that's true. Richard asked me to. He couldn't buy one because of his record. I knew that. I did it anyway." Her tone never wavers. "I helped move the bodies," she continues. "Wrapped them. Carried them. Hid them." The calmness in her voice is unsettling, not defensive, not emotional, simply factual. "But I did not tell him to kill them," she adds, leaning forward. "I didn't plan it. I didn't mastermind it. I didn't sit there and pull the strings like they say I did." Trevor studies her face. Not a quiver. Not a blink. Not a hint of hesitation. If she is lying, she is extraordinary. If she is telling the truth, she has lived inside a terribly unfair story. Trevor repeats the state's position. "The prosecutor says you manipulated Richard. That you orchestrated the entire thing. That you wanted them out of your house. That you guided him like a puppeteer." Sarah's expression hardens for the first time. "That's the label they give women like me," she says. "Manipulative. Calculating. Seductive. A mastermind." She scoffs under her breath. "It's easier for the world to believe I tricked a man into murder than to believe he made the decision himself." Trevor notes the bitterness in her voice, an anger that has been growing for 2 decades. Officers, psychologists, and investigators have warned Trevor about her intelligence. "She's the best manipulator I've ever seen," Sergeant McPherson once told him. Others described her as dangerous, not because of violence but because of her mind. Trevor now understands exactly what they meant. Sarah speaks with precision. She chooses her words like weapons. She controls the conversation without appearing to. Even here, in the state's harshest isolation unit, she has a presence that fills the room. She is brilliant, and brilliance in the wrong body frightens people. "The jury saw you as a manipulator," Trevor says. "A woman who controlled everything. A woman who planned the murders. A woman who used people." Sarah exhales slowly, her hands finally trembling, just a little. "They didn't know me," she whispers. "They only knew the version the prosecutor painted. And once someone paints you as a monster, it's hard for the world to see anything else." Trevor watches her eyes, searching for cracks, for truth, for deception. Instead, he finds something unexpected. Sadness. The sadness of a woman who believes her entire life was rewritten by one mistake, loving the wrong man. Trevor asks the question that has been hanging in the air since the beginning. "Were you in love with him?" Sarah closes her eyes for a moment, gathering herself. "Yes," she says quietly. "I loved him, and I was naive. I thought I could fix him, change him, save him." She opens her eyes again, and Trevor sees that they are glistening. "I stayed because I didn't want to be alone. I made stupid choices because I didn't want him to leave. I helped cover up what he did because I was scared and because I didn't understand how deep I was in." A tear escapes. That's the truth. Or, at least my truth. She wipes her cheek, regaining her composure. But the world doesn't want a love story, she says. It wants a villain. And I was the easier villain to choose. As Trevor rises to leave, he feels the unsettling duality of Sarah Pender settling in his chest. Her intelligence is undeniable. Her calmness is unnerving. Her story is tangled in contradictions. Her guilt is both clear and unclear. She is a woman capable of incredible manipulation, and yet she also speaks like someone who has spent years drowning in regret. She is equal parts captivating and frightening, victim and villain, brilliant and broken. And Trevor realizes the truth. He still doesn't know who she really is. Was she the mastermind? Or was she manipulated herself? Was she a cold-blooded puppeteer? Or a naive young woman in over her head? The real Sarah Pender remains hidden behind layers of truth, lies, pain, intelligence, charm, and mystery. She is either the most dangerous woman in America or the most dangerous story ever told about a woman. Trevor steps away from the segregation cell, the echo of her voice lingering long after the door slams shut. And he knows viewers will walk away haunted, not by what she did, but by what they still don't know. After everything you've heard, everything you've seen, do you believe Sarah Pender is a calculated monster or a misunderstood survivor caught in the wrong story? Leave your answer in the comments below. I genuinely want to know. Who do you think Sarah Pender truly is? Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video. Click on the screen to watch the next one.